Hello again from my front porch, and I am really thrilled and happy to be on the front porch today because, oh Lord, it seemed like I was going to be gone forever. Now granted, I had a couple of back-to-back trips that I knew I was making, but I thought they were going to be back-to-back trips, not turned into one long trip. I had my visit to Ticonderoga, New York for the whole Star Trek weekend experience with William Shatner. If you haven't watched that episode, go back and watch the last one, because that's when that happened. It was really cool. And a lot of really great stuff happened there. And so, yeah, go back and watch that one. But what was supposed to be the plan was I was at that. I left Des Moines on a Thursday, and then I was going to be there for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then fly back to Des Moines on Monday. And I'd get back to Des Moines, have time to be home for the evening, do some laundry, sleep in my own bed, get up Tuesday and mid-morning or so, get on a plane, and a couple of flights and make it down to Fort Lauderdale by that evening, and then spend Wednesday, Thursday in meetings down in Fort Lauderdale with my boss and my peers, and then Friday, get on a plane and fly home and be back to Des Moines by 7 p.m. So, it's like a few days away, back home, few days away, back home. Boom, boom, boom. Piece of cake, right? Well, that didn't quite work out that way. That Monday that I was supposed to come home from flying out of Albany, New York, first of all, I was told that there were mechanical issues with the plane. Now, that's the kind of delay for a plane that I'm okay with, because I would prefer that they make sure it's working. But there was also apparently some weather stuff, not there in Albany, but maybe in other parts of the country. And as I've complained about in other episodes, the airlines have now really put all their eggs in the baskets of just a handful of hubs around the country. And when something goes awry in one of those hubs, it just screws everything up. And it creates a domino effect that affects more than just that hub. It can also then impact other hubs because flights can't go where they need to go. So anyway, the flight getting out of Albany, delayed, and by the time it was going to get to Charlotte, there's really no way to be able to catch any connecting flight to Fort Lauderdale. So I convinced the airline in Albany to, and if I can't catch my flight from Charlotte back to Des Moines that night, well, it's going to make it really hard for me to be in Des Moines to get on the flight I need to go to Fort Lauderdale the next day. So I tell the airline all this, and I say, you know what, here's what we're going to do. How about if we just scrub all that other stuff, and I fly out of Albany to Charlotte, and then from Charlotte, I go to Fort Lauderdale. How about that? How about if we just do that? Will that be okay? And so that they had to finagle some stuff because it's two different plans, and I'd used points for one, and there's a corporate purchase for the other, but they worked it out. They did it, and I wound up spending the night in Charlotte at the airline's expense. They put me up in the hotel room, so thank you, American Airlines, for taking care of that part. And so then I went on to Fort Lauderdale, which meant I didn't come home. I didn't get to come back here, which also meant going to Fort Lauderdale, I had a suitcase now full of dirty clothes because I'd only packed for the few days in New York, not for this whole week and a half or so trip. So one of the first things I had to do when I got to Fort Lauderdale was find a laundromat so I could do all my laundry and turn around and rewear the same clothes that I had just been wearing before. Fortunately, even though it was a Star Trek event that I went to, my suitcase was not just packed with Star Trek uniforms. That would have made my work meetings really interesting. Oh yeah, very interesting. But so anyway, that worked out. Got that done. But then, of course, yesterday, Friday here, I'm trying to come home, and apparently Microsoft and other technology-based things transpired against us, or conspired against us, that's probably the word I want, conspired against us, and just messed everything up. So again, I'm supposed to go out of Fort Lauderdale through Dallas, back to Des Moines, be back home by 7 o'clock. That did not happen. because the flight out of Fort Lauderdale was delayed, about 4 hours ultimately before finally got out there. And I always planned for an extra layover, they're like 2 hours or so I try to shoot for. But of course that got ate up real fast by these delays. And so I'm fortunate, unlike a lot of other travelers, I have the benefit, at least when it's work travel, that I can call up our corporate travel agency folks and say, hey, help me out here, help me with this situation. Other people, they gotta go stand in the big line for the American airline counter or whatever, wait on hold forever to talk to somebody there. But so I am fortunate that I have this other thing, and I consider that a blessing, a huge blessing. So I call them and I say, here's what's going on. So, is there another flight later out of Dallas to Des Moines that I could get onto? And if there's not that, would this make more sense for me to just move all of this flight stuff to Saturday, and I'll just stay an extra night in Fort Lauderdale and fly out the next day? Well, the next day was already problematic because of all the stuff on Friday that was getting canceled and screwed up, and so everything's going to show up. So the Saturday option, that would, if I was doing that, it probably wasn't going to happen either. It's probably going to be Sunday or even Monday. And so I'm like, oh. So there was one flight that was going to get out of Dallas, but it was quite a bit later. It would mean that even on this delayed flight getting out of Fort Lauderdale, I was still going to then have a 4-hour layover in Dallas once I got there before it came. And I'm like, well, you know what? As long as he gets me home, that's all that matters. That's all I care about. So the Fort Lauderdale flight finally takes off, like I said, 3.5, 4 hours after it was supposed to originally have done so. Finally takes off and heads to Dallas. And we get to Dallas, and then you can't have your cell phone. You're supposed to turn it off. So I always put in airplane mode while I'm flying. And we land, I take it off airplane mode. The first thing I get is a message from American Airlines saying that my connecting flight to Des Moines has been delayed another hour. And so I wind up with a 5-hour layover. I've waited 3.5, 4 hours for the delay part of my original flight, and now I've got 5 hours that I'm going to wait in the Dallas airport, just wandering around. I will say this: I was in the D terminal this time, and I apparently I've not been in that part of the airport before, because there were a lot of places, a lot of setup there that I was unfamiliar with. It was actually really nice. Now, a lot of food places, and I wasn't necessarily looking to spend all 5 hours eating, but I was going to do some work. 5 hours, just got done with this 2 days of meetings with my boss and my peers, got work to do. So I flip open my work laptop, and what do I see? The blue screen of death on my computer, which was also something that was an impact related to whatever this technology stuff was. And I'm like, whatever. So, all right, darn, I won't be doing any work this weekend. So this whatever happened, though. Before I get into that, I am home. I got home sometime after midnight last night. I slept in considerably today in my own bed. It felt so good. But, and then today's kind of been a lazy day. I didn't even shave, so you can see. And that's been okay. And the fact that I can't work is probably good, because it's continuing to let my brain just, But it also means that there was stuff I probably should have done that's still going to be waiting for me Monday when my computer is workable again. So then I'm just going to have to scramble to do all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I want to pause for a moment, though, and talk about, there's a chain of events that inconvenienced me, first world problems, blah, 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 but I am home. There are a lot of other people who were not as fortunate. I got home much later, considerably later than I had originally planned, hours later than I originally planned I'd be home, but I'm home. That's the important thing. And I I mean, it's a little after midnight, so technically it wasn't the same day I planned to be home, but just a few minutes after. So close enough. But there were people I know. I talked to people in the airport that they were like I said, they were looking at a day, 2 days, some even 3 days before they were going to be able. One of my team members was stuck in Ohio and couldn't get connecting flights to where she needed to go to down in Texas, and she literally wound up renting a car to drive from Ohio down into Texas because ultimately that was going to get her home quicker than if she had waited for whatever they were working out airline wise and all that kind of stuff. So, very real stories of that kind of stuff happening, and thankfully I did not have to endure any of that. So I was pleased. I was very happy about that having been the case. But let's pause and look at why this all even happened in the first place. And frankly, the biggest thing to take away from this is we become so dependent, not just on technology, but on specific kinds of technology. The standard line on this is that it was not a cyber attack. Now, I will tell you, I don't believe that. I'm skeptical that is an accurate statement. But let's just take stuff at face value. I am at times a conspiracy theorist. Sometimes just a little bit of one, sometimes quite a bit of one. But we'll give benefit of the doubt in this scenario. But all of it seems to trace back to Microsoft's system. Specifically, according to my IT people at least, specifically, it's one little installed thing that needs to be, for the most part, uninstalled, and then when you start back up, it's a refurbish of something. So ultimately, all of this caused because of one little piece of the Windows application, the Windows software, and that one little piece in that Windows software was able to bring down the major airlines, banking, financial stuff, corporate computers like my laptop. Because when I got home, I fired up my personal laptop, which is also a Windows-based system. And you know what? It did not have the blue screen of death. It started up just fine and ran. So it does seem, again, I'm trying not to be all conspiracy. It does seem there's more to this story than what they want us to think. But still, regardless of even any of that, it really is this amazing, just mind-blowing reality check of just how with that one little piece of the Microsoft Windows system software, something goes awry with that, and look how much of everything we do was brought to its knees. Look at all the industries impacted. Look at all the people, millions of people impacted by, because it's not even just the travelers. You know that this also would, because the air traffic, it also would have impacted transport planes. It would have impacted other types of transportation that are computer augmented, possibly even rail systems, things like that. I was actually going to look that up before doing the episode, but if it is just this little Windows business thing, then there's no way that those things would not have been impacted as well too. But still, so much, we put so many of our eggs in this one basket, and that's one of the oldest cliche bits of advice ever. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And yet we have done that. We have taken all these eggs and we put them in this one basket, and then a little piece of that basket goes awry and it scrambles all the eggs. I tell you, whew, man. Again, I am glad to be home. I'm glad. And my heart really does go out for the people who were not fortunate to have that opportunity, that did not, they're still stuck in places where they don't want to be because of the domino effect of all of this. I don't know if there's a solution. I don't know that there's a way to fix it because it's like we've gone well past the point of no return on this. But by the same token, no one's going to be held responsible. No one's going to be held liable. It's going to be a whoop. Well, that kind of thing happens. I half jokingly posted on my Facebook that Bill Gates and his company seriously need to be investigated. Because honestly, if our world was ever going to have anybody who was as close as you could come to a real life James Bond villain, Bill Gates is the guy. I mean, I'm not just talking about because of the money and the influence he has, but because Microsoft, this is his company, and look at this one little piece. If one little piece could mess us up, imagine. Just imagine. Now, I'm not accusing Bill Gates of this. Just play with me here a minute. But just imagine if Bill Gates was a James Bond villain type and he wanted to bring the world to its knees. We now see just how easy that could be done. Now, I'm not saying Bill Gates would do that. I'm saying we have allowed ourselves voluntarily to be in a situation where it could be done like that. Just like that. Just like that. One little piece, one slightly bigger piece, one major chunk of software, one use of the app. It is honestly scary to think just how much of our lives we no longer control. Because one little computer glitch, one cyber attack, no. Just a bad misunderstanding. But that happens, and look at the impact. It wouldn't take much more for that impact to be much more dramatic, much more serious, and much longer lasting. We've got to be vigilant about these things. We need to be paying attention to stuff, not just, hey, I got this technology, where's it? Somebody should be keeping a watchdog eye on this stuff. Yeah, I say that, but I really don't expect it to happen. Well, thank you, Paul. That was real depressing. I'm sorry, but it's just like, wow. If you really stop and think about it, just look at what technology that's supposed to be here to help us, and for the most part it does, but when it doesn't, boy, does it not help us. It does not help us a lot. All right, I will let y'all go, and I'll see you next time from my front porch.